Hello, everyone, and welcome to this SAG-AFTRA Foundation Conversation at Home. I'm Dave Karger from Turner Classic Movies. And before we get started, I just want to remind everyone that the SAG-AFTRA Foundation has a COVID-19 relief fund to support SAG-AFTRA performers who are in urgent need as this pandemic continues. Since March of 2020, the foundation has given over $6.1 million in aid to 6,500 performers and families who are facing extreme hardship. If you are a SAG-AFTRA member and you need help, please ask. And if you're able to help support our community in this crucial effort, please give. All the information can be found in the description of this video. So now it is my pleasure to introduce our special guest today from the powerful and fascinating movie Falling, actor Lance Henriksen, and actor, director, writer, producer, and composer Viggo Mortensen. Hello to you both.
Hi, thanks for having us on.
Absolutely. Lance, Viggo's kind of making you look bad by doing 5 jobs on this movie. You only did 1. Was there a job that you wish you had volunteered for in addition to playing Willis, or were you fine just taking on that one?
I needed to just stick with one thing. I really did. When I watch him, I'm in awe. Believe me, I'm in awe. It's, especially when I saw the movie, I was just blown away.
Yeah. Viggo, I'd be curious to know, when you were in the process of writing this screenplay, was it always in your mind that it was a screenplay you'd be writing and also performing in, or were you more in the mindset you just wanted to get it on the page and think about who was going to play everything later?
Yeah, no, I didn't have anybody in mind when I was writing it. I mean, I was thinking about my mother, even though it's a fictional story, and my mother and my father, and certain things about my upbringing, or my shared upbringing with my brothers. That's why I dedicate the movie to Charles and Walter, my brothers. But I wasn't thinking of any actors, and I wasn't thinking of acting in the movie, to be honest. But as happens with many, if not most, independent movies, especially if they're not, really formulaic or where everything's resolved neatly, it's not always easy to get financing the first go or the second or the third. It took me a few times. And I realized after the first one, I thought, well, if I act in it, maybe it'll help us a little bit. We're getting the financing. Plus, Lance and I had been working on this since I first wrote the script. He came on board, and we'd been getting to know each other really well. And we've been working on these scenes and honing the script together. So I thought it might be a good continuation, where I wouldn't just be directing, trying to help Lance in any way I could to give his best performance, but that I'd be in the thick of it with him on an equal footing as actors, the two of us trying to make some difficult scenes work. And I was a little concerned I'd be distracted, from everything you have to do as a director and pay attention to. But in a way, I was pretty relaxed, I think, because as an actor, if you actually are really attentive to what the other actor is doing, sincerely attentive, and everything that's happening around them, you will naturally relax. And I don't know, I just didn't, it was in a way easier than I thought to act. It was more of a workload, obviously, more preparation, but it wasn't so bad. It was fun. It was wonderful to sit across from Lance Henriksen and watch him construct his incredibly brave, layered, surprising, sometimes really disturbing performance from the ground up. It was just right there. There'd be times where I'd be in a scene with him, watching him and thinking, I can't wait to get in the editing room with that look he just gave, and then, oh, I better stay in it. It was a good experience.
Yeah. So how long has it been since the two of you have been working on this together?
I think 2016 was it when we first started talking about it?
Yeah.
Wow. So
it seemed like we worked on it for a year, but we didn't. It was a very short shoot, really, in a way. I'll let Viggo tell you that story.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, every day was a week, and every week was like a month, and it just felt like we were going to get shredded.
It was intense.
I felt it. And then suddenly at the very end of it, we had a party, I remember we had a party, an outdoor party, and we all were just letting go, a sigh of relief that it was actually done, because everybody worked their tail off. I mean, there's no other way to describe it, really.
Yeah. It was a great crew and the group of actors that we got together, we were so lucky. I mean, they were amazing, all of them. From 4-year-old Grady McKenzie, who was extraordinary as the 4-year-old version of John, you know.
But we knew we didn't leave any rock unturned. We really, all of us, you know.
Yeah, I'm sure. Lance, do you remember your first reaction to reading, whether it was a finished script or scenes or whatever Viggo sent you?
Oh, do I ever? Yeah, I remember Viggo gave me a script and I read it, and I read it maybe 3 times in one sitting. Well, did I really read that? You know, I would go back and start reading it again. And I thought, I'm going to have to visit places in my life and in my experiences that, you know, they're not the ones you think of in the morning when you're going to have breakfast or coffee. They're rough stuff. And, you know, so I was also thinking, use a baseball term, you can't hit a home run without a bat. And I have spent a whole career probably doing these sort of characters that are come and go, you know, and then I go on a little vacation and do another one, you know, or pay the bills. But anyway, so this was like a Herculean kind of thing that everybody was going to get involved in. So I was nervous. Not nervous, but I knew.
Terrified.
Scared, okay. I was afraid, okay. I mean, because my biggest fear is to get caught acting, you know. I mean, I'll do a character that's different, zany or whatever. I mean, but I don't want to get caught acting it. I want to have a real reason for saying what I'm saying. You know.
Yeah.
That's one thing I noticed always with Lance's movies. I mean, he's done hundreds of movies, 200 and I don't know how many is it, Lance, 280 or something, right?
Like that.
Yeah. So, yeah.
I don't look back at
how many have you seen?
What?
How many of them have you seen?
I don't. I see them all once, and that's it. But I don't remember them all. Yeah. Well, I remember some that I love, but you know.
I mean, even before I met Lance, I met him actually in 2007 when we were shooting the movie that Ed Harris directed, Western called Appaloosa.
Appaloosa, right?
Yeah. And but before that, I'd obviously seen him in, you know, not only the well-known movies, you know, the movies he did with Sidney Lumet or you know, James Cameron, Steven Spielberg, et cetera, but all kinds of really out there movies, you know, like genre movies, some unclassifiable. I don't know what the genre is on some of them, to be honest. But it didn't matter how wild the story was or strange. He was always, he always got my attention. There was something, essentially, I felt honest about his acting and committed. So he was always remarkable in some way. I thought, well, he just works really hard. It doesn't matter what he's doing. He's committed to it. And, you know, that's the kind of actors you want to work with.
Thank you for that, Viggo. Thank you.
Yeah. And that's, you know, when I first was trying to think, well, who would be a great Willis? I thought, well, Lance was he's the right age, his voice, his presence, and plus this fact that he's just such an honest actor. It doesn't matter. I mean, he hadn't really been given a role like this to play. He should have had that before, but I thought, well, there's no reason he can't knock this out of the park. You know, I think he'll surprise people. And I felt you would do something special, Lance, but you more than surpassed whatever I dreamt it might be. It was a great experience watching you put that together.
Thank you.
Lance, how did you come to understand Willis?
I was raised by a big family. My mother was one of 10. So that means I had 9 uncles and aunts, and they were all a little crazy. I mean, they came from the Depression era, and they were, they were tough people. They were struggling their whole lives, really. I mean, they didn't have ever, in my eyes, hit a lake that had no waves. It was like, the wave was like an ocean going around Cape Horn. That's what it was like. And so I had a lot to draw on because I had a lot of incidents and, little small things, like my mother gave me my birth certificate and put it in my hand and closed my hand on it when I was 5, and then turned me around. And as she shoved me out the door, she said, "You'll always know who you are." And shoved me out the door into the night. That's a story in itself, I mean, and so I had a lot of those kind of things, crazy behavior. Artists would be this, would be that. And they were all under the duress of being a human being and not knowing how. So.
Lance started telling me when we were preparing, getting to know each other and working on the script, he started telling me stories like that one about the birth certificate, where he's pushed outside for days just to be on the streets in winter in New York City. And, basically growing up on the streets, not being able to read until he was 30. I mean, just not really schooling, and just a difficult, upbringing with a lot of alcoholism in the family, right? And drug use, just craziness and violence, psychological and physical. And he would tell me these stories. Sometimes he would laugh about them or just smile. And I was like, it's amazing that you're so at peace with this. And he said, well, it took me some decades, but I realized that I went through that horrible stuff. I don't want to keep dwelling on it. I want to move past it. And however you did it, it's remarkable. But when you said to me, I remember when, we lost the financing one time and then another time. And then I finally came back to Lance a year and a half later or something. And I said, I'm going to give it one last shot. In fact, we're just going to start shooting all this footage we need for autumn and summer and stuff. I'm just going to go. I didn't tell Lance we didn't have the money. I just acted like we're making it. And, about 6 months later, we got the money just in time and so forth. And, but, when I came back to him and I said, hey, Lance, I'm going to give it another shot. We're making the movie. And I said, you're still on board? And he said, yeah. And I said, well, that was kind of an uncomfortable pause there. I mean, you don't have to do it. It's not like forced labor. I want you to do it if you want. And he goes, no, I want to do it. I love the script, but it's going to be tricky, and not just because of it's going to be a challenge, not just because of the script and the emotional demands of the character and all that, and the dementia and playing all these things, but because I'm going to have to go to some places. And that's when he started telling me these stories, I realized, oh, that's where he's going to go, in that sense of doesn't want to get caught acting, wants to live it, wants to be honest, which is to your credit. But he knew he was going to have to go to some, I think, kind of painful places to do with his upbringing that he maybe hadn't thought of in that way for a long time. And he did. It's a very brave performance as a result, I think.
Hey, there's another element to this. What secretly I was doing, I hired a young actor to work with me, to run lines with and work with me and try to break scenes down for like 2 months.
Yeah.
Literally, I was paying him. I mean, it was like, he's a good kid. Bo Bridgewater, really great kid. And, he's about 26. And we would go through it until we couldn't take another hour. We would do these scenes and then we get exhausted and then say, I'll see you tomorrow. Let's do it. Let's work tomorrow again. And we did it for a couple of months. But that was my secret. I didn't want to, you don't always want to express the sweat that goes into something. I love the script. And knowing what you may do with it, and that was all realized. It was incredible.
Well, your lines, I mean, the lines you have, because you go in and out of dementia, and there isn't the usual logic to your dialogue in some cases, so it's not easy to memorize, and there's certain things that you repeat in different places, and it was tricky to learn all that.
Very tricky. But that's what we do. That's the journey.
Yeah.
And that's what gave me a life, I mean, really acting in every way. It's not therapy. I don't mean it's therapy. But what it does is it exposes you to other people, and you start reflecting, well, I've got some of that, and I've got a little of that, and your confidence starts swelling, and you're fine. The arts are like that. They give you the gift. Yeah.
Viggo, any particular reason you chose Red River as the film that Willis would be watching?
Viggo chose that, which I thought was great, man. Right before we have an argument over food.
Yeah.
No, Red River is a movie that I like a lot, and I think it's probably my favorite John Wayne performance, and I think it was in part because this young actor doing his first movie, Montgomery Clift, theater actor from New York, gay.
Is that his first movie?
Oh yeah, 1947. And he comes out west to do this movie, and John Wayne is the king of Western actors, right? He's the boss, and he's coming out to work for Howard Hawks, opposite John Wayne. And I think that Montgomery Clift surprised Wayne about how prepared he was and how good he was. He was so much a cowboy, so good in this part, that he gave John Wayne a run for his money. So there was this, not only the characters had this competitive streak, kind of a father-son relationship, even though they're not blood, but there was between the actors, I think. And it was, but because the scene is obviously one more scene between a father and son in Falling, where there was this tension between the older man and the younger man, and that was reflected by that Western. And I happened to, I knew I wanted it to be a Western because that's, he listens to country music, and Willis watches Westerns, and at full volume. He doesn't care. He's used to being by himself. But even when he's younger, you see that scene earlier when he's listening to the radio 45 years earlier, when John's a little boy, the duck dinner, he's also at full volume. It's like, I've worked hard all day. I'm going to listen to the radio or watch TV as loud as I want while I eat, and I'm going to have a beer and so forth. And everybody else better just adapt to it, right? And so it was a continuation of that idea. And so I know it would be a Western, but I thought, which one? And I thought, that one. That's perfect because of the father-son.
That was really good. Good choice.
I selfishly choose to believe that Willis was watching Red River on Turner Classic Movies, because we show that movie quite often.
There you go.
You introduced it ever, Dave?
I several times. I think the famous story there is that John Ford said he didn't know John Wayne could act until he saw what Howard Hawks and Montgomery Clift did with him in Red River. So that's really interesting.
I think Bogdanovich wrote that in one of his books, right?
Oh, yeah. That makes sense.
I remember him writing about that, some interview with Howard Hawks or something. Maybe.
Well, there you go. God, he's the master of all of it. This question might be moot, but did you guys ever worry that the dynamic between John and Willis would threaten to bleed over because you guys were living in these roles? Did it ever come to a danger of causing a tense moment between the two of you?
Like Lang would punch me or something?
Or just as actors, because to be so antagonistic to someone in this realistic way, did it ever threaten to bleed over?
No, I think we stayed friends, but we did have a moment. There was a day, remember, Lance, where it was just hard on us, just psychologically. It was just exhausting. And there was one day where we were having trouble. It wasn't coming together, and we stepped outside and took a break. They're changing camera positions, and Lance says to me, look, I got to tell you something. This is don't get me wrong, I'm really glad that you hired me for this job and that we're doing this, but I'm done. This is my last movie as an actor. I'm
not doing another movie.
Yeah, this is killing me. And I said to him, and I felt just as down in the dumps, I said, it was just a bad day. It was hard. we got the day, but it was tough. And I said, yeah, this idea of directing, I was very excited, and I prepared as best I could. We have a great crew and a great cast, but it was good to try it, but that's, I'm not doing that again. But then the next day we pulled it together. Remember, we had a sort of a little.
We bonded on the
I left you a note or something. I think I left you a note, and I said, let's remember
Yes,
why.
you did. Yeah.
Right. What did I say?
You said, look, this is supposed to be fun. Let's have fun tomorrow. Let's try.
Acting's supposed to be fun.
There was a rose on it. He put a white rose on the note. And I went, this guy is great, man. I just flipped. It was so tender. It was like,
I had to
and
go
we did have a great day.
I had to go to some store. I was on the way to work early in the morning, and there was a store. I can't remember. It was not like a 7-Eleven, but some place, and they happened to have some roses. And I thought, that's going with the note. Yeah. Oh. But I didn't know. Lance could have took that the wrong way. He said, what the hell?
No. No, you cut right to the quick. You got me.
Oh, that's great.
And then the next day we had a really good day. And from then on, we didn't look back. And Lance has already done another movie since ours, so he changed his mind.
Exactly. I want to ask you guys about what I consider really the centerpiece scene of the movie, the scene that the whole thing is building to, the where John finally erupts verbally, and then you guys have the physical altercation. Viggo, I know with small, limited budget movies, you don't always have the luxury of scheduling them the way you want to. When was that scene shot in the overall shoot?
Well, it would have been, in a way, I guess, it would seem that it would be good to do that late once we already had a lot of stuff done, but it didn't work out that way. We started shooting in March, and we had 1 week, 5 days in a row in that farmhouse where we got everything. It was crazy. The flashbacks, all like where we were outside working. And I said to Carol Spear, our production designer, I know it's usually a matter of days, but can you, by tomorrow, while we're outside working, can you change it from 1962 to 2009, just trash the place and make it look like Willis has been living alone and smoking and, everything. Well, I'll give it a try. And when she says that, I know her from, she did all the Cronenberg movies. She's the best. And when she said, I'll give it a try, it means she's going to do it, which she did. Anyway, well, no, we didn't. We had that week with snow and out at the farm. And so we had to do it early on. I think we were going to do it like the third day in or so, Wednesday or so. And one thing happened there. We had a very tight schedule. I wanted 7 weeks, which isn't a lot, 35 shooting days. We got 5 weeks to do all that, the movie, which it's ambitious. So we had to prepare very well, kids working, limited hours, winter hours, all that, different time periods. And so we were working on the first half of that scene, which we knew had to go a little further than anything else in a way.
We were going to have to bleed.
Yeah, we were going to have to bleed. And we were partway through it, sort of the initial stages where they're sort of sparring a little, right? And we went outside again, we were talking, and Lance said, how do you think it's going? I said, it's going. It's correct. We're hitting the right beats so far, but I think, I don't know, it can't just be okay. We have to be it has to be uncomfortable. If we expect it to be uncomfortable for the audience and to earn what happens after, and the reason why all this tension where, John's just waiting, something has to happen there that's not comfortable. And I don't know if we're going to get there today. And I sort of made a decision there, even though we didn't have room to maneuver much schedule wise. I said to the first AD, I think let's change. We got the kids here. So let's do the scene from the past with Hannah and the kids and Sverrir playing the younger version of Willis. And Lance is going to go home, and I'm just not going to act. I'm just going to direct and a couple other scenes, and we'll do something else tomorrow too. And then we'll come back Friday morning and we're going to go for it. And so we rested up. We talked a little bit about it on the phone, I think, but we just came in with a different attitude and energy. And it was a good thing, because then we went somewhere that was uncomfortable for both of us, I think. and the crew reacted. I mean, that was our audience, and they were, I mean, you remember that, Lance, how they were? They were just...
I walked, after we finished the scene, I walked around a corner to another room where the video village was, and the crew was in there. They were packed in there because they wanted to see this scene, and they were crying after we had done the scene. They had connected so personally. God knows what they were connecting with, what part of that, but it was, I think I felt, I can breathe a sigh of relief. We got it. You know, there's another element that I have ravens, and they're here every day, and there's a mother and a child raven, and I remember watching them fight over food. He was trying to mooch and get the food from the mother's mouth, and she was trying to teach him, you're gonna have to fight for your food. So they got into a real fight. And I remember in the middle of the scene we were doing, I put my arm out and I screeched like those ravens make that noise.
Yeah.
And it came out spontaneously, because I think so much of the real things that we did that worked were always some image that we've been gathering our whole lives. And that one, I'm very affectionate toward my ravens, because they're a pain. They're like a mad dog. They're like then they get all artsy on me. And then, you know, I mean, it's a relationship. I don't have a dog, so I have ravens. But anyway, the magic of acting somehow is, where does the image come from? What is something that really is in your blood? I mean, and we were always trying to be honest, not just say, okay, that was good enough. No, it's not good enough. If there's a seed of doubt, then we just go at it again. We were doing that constantly.
Yeah.
And I thought, wow, this is really where I wanted to be. This is really what I want to do. And this is, you know, it goes through all the thoughts. That's what's so good about it.
Felt different afterwards too, didn't it? I mean, when we finished everything, but it's hard doing it that way, but it's worth it. And I don't know that another actor would have done what you did, would have been willing to put himself through what you did to get what we got, the results, you know.
Well, you did. We both.
Well, I mean, together, yeah.
That's a great reflection, you know. It's like, there it is. There's that relationship.
Yeah. And the crew connected. It wasn't just that one day.
No,
they started. I mean, it had already started, but then they really started telling us stories about their families. You know.
Yeah, they did.
Oh, this reminds me of so and so, or this event, and it was like there was a really strong emotional connection the whole way during the shoot, and it got to be more and more intense, and people were really engaged. Which, as actors, if you're lucky to have a crew like that, that's not only skilled technically and committed to doing a good job, but that it means something to them on a personal level, that's very fortunate, because then you feel like, you know, you're playing in your home stadium or your home field. You feel like you just can feel that energy, that people are with you and that you can try anything and you don't have to be embarrassed and you can go all the way emotionally and all these things. It makes such a difference to actors and also to a director, as I saw. I mean, I didn't expect that. It was a great gift to have that kind of crew that was excellent at their jobs, but also personally invested. And I thought, wow, we better not ruin this in the editing, because I want audiences to connect as well. You know, unfortunately, we have had that in some Q&As with audiences where they have suddenly out of the blue, someone says, well, I had my grandmother or something or other, or I had an uncle who did this, or when I was a kid, you know, or dementia, you know, obviously a lot of people have familiarity with that. And we wanted to get that right, you know, and I've had a lot of experience in my family with it, both my parents, stepdad, grandparents, so forth. And I didn't want to present someone, as almost always happens in movies or plays about it, that's like confused most of the time, or their point of view, if they show it or try to, is confused. My experience is that the people confused are the observers and the caregivers. Usually they're not confused unless you correct them unnecessarily and tell them that somebody that they're telling you about having had breakfast with died 35 years ago. And then they're crushed because that person dies again or something like that.
Yeah.
you realize with experience, that's really about your ego. You want them to be the way they were. You're correcting. You're not helping them. So you have to be at the service of them and give up, sacrifice your desire to have them be the way they were and to see the present the way you do. Just make them comfortable. And so that was an aspect. And a lot of people in the crew related to that. And I have a lot of audience members too.
There's another story. I got to tell it, Viggo. He took flags from every nationality in the crew that was on the set and hung them like banners. We're talking, 3 by 6 foot flags from every country: Norway, Sweden, Denmark, England, all, they were all tied together, draped between all of the equipment. And everybody felt like, hey, they felt the connection. It was like that you cared that much to say, hey, let's celebrate who we are and do it and do a good job and all that. Well, not only that, but he put pictures of his family in the makeup trailer, and everybody came in and out of that makeup trailer because they had a good coffee machine and, the crew and and all the actors. And then people started pinning their pictures up there.
Of their family.
We were this extended family.
Yeah.
And it worked. I mean, I used to love to come to work and see the flags flipping in the freezing wind, It was
That's great.
You did that. He did that. You know what I mean? He did that. He set the trend. He set the tone. He set the affection. Why are we here? This is why we're here.
I have a couple last questions before I let you guys go. Viggo, obviously, you've worked with so many fantastic directors over your career, and I'm sure you have directors that you've worked with, or maybe the ones that you haven't worked with that have influenced you as far as your directing style and the visuals and things like that. But beyond that, with directors that you have worked with and their demeanor on set and the way they lead, was there one or two that you wanted to emulate in that regard?
I've been fortunate. I've worked with a lot of good directors, men and women from different countries, different visual styles, so forth. Different technical abilities and so forth. But the things I've learned from several of them, and I would put David Cronenberg at the top of the list, is one, you can never prepare too much or too early for a shoot, especially one like this, But the most important thing is communication. We're telling a story about communication and the problems of communication, overcoming them. So it would be kind of weird to not have good communication with the crew. I guess it wouldn't be the first time, but in this case, no. What I've learned, and in a way, maybe it's good that I had to wait this long. The first time I tried to get a movie together to direct was almost 25 years ago. And I've written several screenplays and tried many times, including with Falling, until I got to direct a movie. But it was good to wait until I was 60 years old, probably, because I got the benefit of learning from all these people. And the main thing was what I learned, and I said this to the crew on the first day in the cast, I said, before we get our first shot, welcome to all of you. And it's an idea I have, this story, and I have in mind how I want to do it. But I've learned from the best directors that you have to leave the door open to other ideas. And a good idea can come from anyone at any time, any one of you. So please don't tell me tomorrow about the great idea you have today, because today's when we're doing the scene we're doing today. We're not going to be able to do it again tomorrow. We don't have that kind of schedule. And they did. They came and people felt comfortable. And I think that helps people feel involved, but it's also a good idea for a director. You don't have to be threatened like your authority or control, especially if it's your first time. It's like, oh, they're not taking me seriously. They're suggesting all this stuff, or they have all these questions. I thought it was positive. That's what I've learned from the good ones. There's many ways to do things, and we've prepared really well. So I was relaxed. And if somebody came up with a better idea, we'd think about it and maybe do it, or a line would come up, or Lance and I would be talking and he'd say something to me. He was telling me a story one time about one of his children when they were babies, and he was looking at them with tenderness and love. And he was telling me, we were talking about I said, when my son was born, he was like, beautiful to look at, changing colors as he came out of the womb and all this. And he's talking about his daughter, and he goes, yeah, I was so moved. I was so loved her. She's so precious and so unique, and I just wanted to protect her. And so I said, I'm sorry I brought you into the world so you could die. And I said, there was this pause, and I said, you said that to a baby? And he goes, yeah, because I loved her. And he explained it to me. I said, well, I'm hearing you, and I know you're a kind person, you love her, but I'm going to use that line, if you're all right. I'm going to use that in the script. It's going to be your character, but when you're younger, because I want to set a marker early on. Things like that can happen when you've prepared and you're open to what might happen. So yeah, that's what I've learned from directors.
That's great. Yeah. Lance, I want to end with you. Shelley Winters won an Oscar for playing a very bigoted character in A Patch of Blue. And she said at the time, I always try to find something to like about the characters that I play, but not this one. I really despise this woman. I'm curious where you ended up on Willis at the end of this whole process.
I think there was a core element in this story. One important to me personally, is you don't try to fix me because I don't feel like I'm broken. I'll fix me. You don't have to do it. Otherwise you're controlling me. You're treating me like I am in a prison and I belong there. And if you do these things I want you to do, I'll let you out. I'll treat you better. I'll respect you. Well, I came from people that came through the Depression era. They were freezing bread, like 100 loaves, so that they're sure they always had bread. And then there was a petty tightness about their lives compared to how we all live now. We're able to talk to each other and we're getting better at it. And so, yeah. So anyway, I wasn't holding a mirror up. I only looked into a mirror in that movie once in the airplane, and I didn't know who the hell I was looking at, that kind of thing. But it's not acting. It's about, I wanted to stay true to Willis, because I really think that if I wasn't, I would betray an audience. And by the time they got to the end, and I betrayed them 4 or 5 times by getting caught acting, doing it for commerce rather than for the art. We're cradled when we're making a movie, not only by SAG, but by each other. We're cradling each other and making it a safe place to do these things. And you don't have to, push it and betray an audience, because they'll never forgive you. If you get caught acting, they won't forgive you.
I don't think anyone's thinking that by the end of this movie, but
no, I know.
Right.
We never let them down. We didn't cheat it.
We also had jokes, and we had, fun. And, not like you're doing it in a humorless way, but you're very, very tough on yourself as an actor in this, not wanting to get caught acting. And that was, you did a great favor to our story. I think it inspired all the other actors to follow your lead.
Yay! Thank you. You heard that? That?
I can't think of a better note to end on than that. It's absolutely fascinating to hear the two of you talk. You made my job very, very easy today. So thank you very much. And on behalf of everybody at SAG-AFTRA Foundation, thank you to Viggo and Lance just for sharing your time and your experience.
They've treated me well on my whole career since 1971.
That's great to hear.
Happy holidays and happy safe holidays.
Christmas or holidays.
Be careful.
Absolutely.
You want to have Christmas next year.
Wouldn't that be nice? It's great to see you, and thank you everyone for watching this today. Thanks a lot for joining us. See you soon.